Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Voice of the Valleys with your host, Mr. George Cresswell. I hope we're all doing well. Hope we're all having a fantastic day. It's the fourth Sunday of the Easter season at time of recording, the 11th of May, 2025. Now, it's been a long time since I've done like a solo episode going over some things, and I had a lot banked up from before, but I wanted to go back, and we're going to start off this episode a little bit differently with something I wanted to go over before with some other things as well with what we're going to be getting into today. The main topic of conversation today is going to be around potentially the new frontrunners for the political situation in Wales, that being Plaid Cymru, and how I think they are going to be somehow even more destructive than Labour have been. But today was going to be a interview as well. If you've been paying attention to the YouTube channel or to Spotify, wherever you get these episodes from, you'll see that I've done a couple of interviews recently. We've had Josh Fernie and James Monroe on the show, two Homeland activists from Scotland, to talk about what Homeland's mission is, how they've been represented versus what they say that they actually stand for. And with James Monroe in particular, somebody who fell himself into very extreme NatSoc, and by NatSoc I mean nationalist, socialist, kind of Nazi ideology he fell into, the damage it done and how he got himself back from that, and how in particular his involvement with Homeland got him back on a more positive track. So those are really two good interviews that we've done. We've obviously also had James Harvey on the show. I've uploaded my interview with Tim Davis to the show. And also obviously sat down with Paul Ashton of the Abolish Welsh Assembly Party, and was meant to have another big interview today, which I'm not going to spoil who it is. I want it to be a bit of a surprise when it comes out, but let's just say it's going to be a bombshell interview when that one drops. It is going to be a bombshell interview indeed, but that was meant to be today. Sadly, they had to postpone it. They had to reschedule due to sickness. It's one of those things that can't be helped, but we'll hopefully be bringing that to you very, very soon. But seeing as I was going to sit down and record today anyway, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a recap into what's going on, and hopefully not do it in the way that I've been prone to doing it in the past, where, you know, I've been very just ranty, very, you know, not adding much in terms to the conversation in like a measured and productive way, I feel. So I want to do a little bit more with highlighting this now, why I think that the direction that Wales is potentially moving in, due to the dissatisfaction with Labour and the quote unquote, I put massive, if you're watching the video, you'll see there's massive air quotes around this next bit, the Welsh nationalists, as they're called, Plaid Cymru. And the Senedd Waste page on X, Doge Wales, have been recently calling them out a lot because they are showing that although they claim to be Welsh nationalists, they are the furthest thing from that. If you can believe it, they're even more to the left than Labour on certain issues. And I put a status up the other day that this is, you can basically, if you're not going to listen to this, it's 3 minutes in, if you're not going to listen to this show any more than this, just know that Plaid Cymru are supposed Welsh nationalists that want to make Wales a nation of sanctuary to allow any Tom, Dick and Harry from any part of the world to come here and under the guise of being refugees or asylum seekers and all of this stuff, right, to claim all the benefits, to fleece off the Welsh taxpayer, to create a serf class of the Welsh people that are going to support this, and to not only do that, but they're doing it under the guise of being Welsh nationalists, and they want to rejoin us with the EU in the... What the hell was that? In the single market economy and those kinds of things. Bear with me 2 seconds, guys. I'm going to pause this recording while I go find out what the hell that was. There's one thing about OBS I do love, right? It's that, you know, I was just away from the microphone and away from the setup for several minutes to go check out what that was. And it was, unsurprisingly, it was my dog going ba-dunk, 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 ba-dunk down the stairs with a sock that she'd stolen. So no surprise there. But the fact that I can just pause the recording, go and do that and come back seamlessly, it saves so much time in editing. It's amazing. Anyway, getting back on with what we were saying. So somehow, again, I'll get into how we'll explain why in a moment, I believe that Plaid Cymru are going to be somehow even more dangerous than Labour, if you can believe that. As I said, quote-unquote Welsh nationalists that want to rejoin us with the EU single market economy, want to open the door to all kinds of foreigners that are going to be coming in from who knows where, an untold number, because we need to be a nation of sanctuary, and we need to give these quote-unquote refugees all of these, privileges off the back of the Welsh taxpayer. Of course, always off the back of the Welsh taxpayer. So I'm going to show you one thing that is being done. A lot of it is just being done under these blatant race Marxist agendas, okay? And that is in the goal of making Wales a anti-racist country, an anti-racist country by the year 2030. Okay, that is what this is all about. And that's why you're seeing signs popping up in certain areas of Wales now where people are being advised that they should not walk their dog, or they cannot walk their dog because it might offend certain religious and ethnic minorities and so on. Why these policies were thrust onto the Welsh people when they did not vote for them, nor were they asked for them, I have absolutely no idea. Why these people are here, I have absolutely no idea. But this is another thing that's going to be going on in Wales in pursuit of this anti-racist agenda, where for no reason other than these people having black ethnic minority status, whatever the hell it's called, the BAME shit, right? For no reason other than that, these people, these teaching assistants in particular in this clip, which Patrick Christys is going to explain now, are going to be getting paid £5,000 per year more than their other counterparts, simply because they have a certain characteristic that they cannot control. Namely, their counterparts have a certain characteristic that they cannot control, that they are white, and they will likely be native to this country. But I'll allow Mr. Christys to explain now. I'm just going to make sure that the volume and everything is working. And this is from TikTok, so there's a little funny AI image of a dog in the bottom. But if you're watching this, you'll obviously see Mr. Christys explain. If not, ears on and listening, ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
In Wales today, it's been announced that ethnic minority student teachers are going to be paid £5,000 a year more than their white counterparts, just for being ethnic minorities, because Wales wants to become an anti-racist country by 2030. Well, I'm sorry, that's racism. Then it turns out that the NHS has been prioritising black and ethnic minority candidates for job interviews over white people. That is racism. And then the police force now, as well, is also prioritising hiring people who, get this, might not even be able to speak English. You don't solve racism with more racism. And I hate to say this, but if you are massively racist towards the white population, then don't be surprised when sometimes people kick off about that.
Yeah, a lot of things to take note of there. So it's not just the teaching assistants are going to be getting paid more. In the NHS, they're also offering preferential treatment. And this is very much in line with what's going on, or what was going on in America, with like affirmative action programs, which is, again, it's just reverse racism. That's all it is, just reverse racism. So you have people, just because they have a certain characteristic that is outside of their control, either receiving benefit or receiving punishment for that. Okay. The reason I tie in the term race Marxism is that all this has done, it's taken the Marxist construct of oppressor versus oppressed, privileged versus, or bourgeoisie versus proletariat, these ideas. And the one side, mind you, is always right, and the one side is always wrong. Okay. The one side is always the oppressor, be a virtue of their position, and the other one is always the oppressed. Now, if you take class in that structure, if you make the central focus of that, and I put this up in one of my episodes at the start of the year where James Lindsay was explaining this very well at the European Parliament when he was explaining this, is that Marx was mainly revolved around class, and the main focus that allowed him to espouse his ideology was economic inequality, financial inequality. And that's where you get bourgeoisie, wealthy people, even just regular business owners and stuff like that. Which is why, by the way, when you see people that subscribe to this ideology and see the part of the oppressed class, they'll often go around tearing down their own communities, their own businesses for, as well when they do these riots and stuff like that. Yeah, they'll go after other things that are deemed as bastions of the enemy side, right? Tesla is a great example at the moment where you have literal terrorism being directed at domestic terrorism being directed at like Tesla superchargers, Tesla dealerships, Tesla cars, you know, because they quote unquote Nazis and all of this, right? As they don't oppose the absolute Marxist takeover of their countries and, you know, the absolute cultural change that comes with mass migration and all of these kinds of things. But the same people then will also profess that, oh, we need to care about the pagan sun god and the you know the climate change hysteria, all of these types, right? So it's incongruent, but it's all because there's the oppressor and oppressed matrix, and in Marx's case, it was class and it was financially oriented. If you replace that now with race, all of a sudden you get whiteness as this kind of cultural private property that some people are allowed to have and some people are not, and as a result, it needs to be eliminated. And that's where you end up with all of these different schemes, where you end up with affirmative action in America. So you end up with preferential treatment in teaching assistants and in NHS. And then you wonder why everything else is going out of the window as well, because you've got to take into account the people that are getting in these positions are there because of this ideology. So they'll espouse this ideology once they get to that position. And it's this positive feedback loop that never ends. This positive feedback loop of destruction, also known as managed decline. And then the really scary one is, I'm going to rewind the clip a little bit and find it, where he's talking about the police. So I'm going to play this clip again, and apologies again, it's not centered if you're watching the video, because there's only a certain amount of technical know-how I know how to do, and I can't be asked to keep cropping it and recropping it to center, because we've got other clips and stuff to go through as well, where this current aspect ratio looks better. I'm going to play it for you one more time, where he's talking about the police. This is a really, really scary one, that they're hiring police officers that don't even know how to speak English, okay?
And then the police force now, as well, is also prioritising hiring people who, get this, might not even be able to speak English. You don't solve racism with more racism.
Okay, so now the police are going to be hiring people that don't even know how to speak English. And obviously that's going to go tremendous, right? That's going to go tremendous, right? But obviously we need to have more of these oppressed people, quote unquote, having these opportunities in our nation for some reason. That's why they can't go make their own home nations great again. Maybe there's something wrong at home that maybe they need to address. Maybe, you know, many countries throughout the world that these people are coming from, maybe, you know, not electing terrorist groups to the you know, the premiership of their country, to the governing body of their country may be a good idea. But anyway, it isn't hard to see them when you get examples in the UK. A great example is when Martin Frost, I believe his name is, burnt a Quran in London, or it was in Manchester. I think it was Manchester, actually. And he was a Jewish man burning a Quran in the UK. Now, in theory, right, in a country where that kind of speech is supposedly protected, but we supposedly have free speech, that act, as much as it might be repulsive to some people, as much as, you know, we would say, for example, that burning religious documents in an act of provocation is not exactly a very nice thing to do, even though the book that he's burning in question calls for all our violent subjugation and death, okay? And calls for the takeover of our country. So I'm not exactly going to bat for defending the Quran by here, but if somebody was burning a Bible, for example, it'd be very uncouth, be very unprofessional. The only thing is, it is protected. It is protected, or at least in theory it would be, their right to do so. Okay, it's the right to freedom of expression and freedom of speech, right? And in a public forum, and especially obviously in the private home and in a public forum, you should be okay to do that. That's why you're able to have open dialogue at Speaker's Corner, for example, which very often turns into, you know, just nonsensical, you know, shouting from both sides, and has obviously many times gotten physical in many instances as well, with, you know, support officers and police doing absolutely nothing unless, again, you're of a certain race or certain, you know, ethnic background. Namely, if you're a native, then you'll be persecuted. If you're not, if you have one of these protected characteristics, then you will be praised. You'll be praised for your resilience. But point being is that he was then arrested. And there's a reason why people are now calling it de facto blasphemy laws, is that he was charged, I believe, then with either insulting or harassing the institution of Islam, and he was arrested by 2 Muslim police officers, okay, clearly of Middle Eastern descent, I would imagine. So this seems like a tremendous idea. We already have examples of two-tier policing, two-tier justice, and police operating based on doing the best for their own people and their own communities, unless it is the British people that are the victims, okay? Unless it is the English, the Welsh, the Scottish, and the Irish that are the victims of these crimes, right? So we already have that, and then the Welsh government thinks it's a great idea. Let's bring in even more police officers that don't even know how to speak English, okay? And one of the biggest things, and if you listen to somebody, I've got his book upstairs. I started reading it. It's the letters of when he was in prison for his nationalist endeavours. John Jenkins, Welsh nationalist, and he in his letters, for example, some of his letters, was very concerned and very. I'm trying to think of the right word. Sad, despairing. Not despairing, because I don't think he was at that level of emotional state, at least from the letters that I've read. But he was making the observation that the Welsh language, for example, the Welsh language is in decline, and it's one of the things that as soon as the language goes, the culture and everything else goes with it. And I absolutely, see where he's coming from, or see where he was coming from with regards to that. And then the government, not only is the Welsh language fading more and more and more, and we really should all be doing a greater effort to keep our culture and language alive, absolutely. But we're now bringing in, at least currently, the language of the land is English, right? Or the main language of the land is English. And now we're bringing in police officers, mind you, that are in positions of authority over your life. They can change your entire life and potentially even end it in an instant. They have that power. Okay, and we're bringing in people from cultural backgrounds that don't even speak the goddamn language. Tell me how this is a measure of a good society that cares about its people. And that is because this is not a good society that cares about its people. And now I mentioned that the big story we're going to be getting onto today is, well, the big talking point with regards to today is Plaid Cymru. I'm going to play you another video in a moment. And this is from, again, the Doge Wales Senedd Waste X page. And I'm going to quote to you this post, and I'm going to play you this video in a moment. It says, Plaid Cymru politician Sioned Williams. Now, I'll give you a little bit of an insight into Sioned Williams. She is, because half of her bio is in Welsh, and it doesn't give me an option to translate it. She is a Plaid Cymru member of the Senedd for South Wales. She prioritises social justice in quote-unquote early years, and does all of this with pronouns in her bio, right? So we're off to a great start. Typical Plaid Cymru, liberal, quote-unquote, liberal socialist, obsessed with social justice. Do you know who was also really, really, really up on social justice? Khmer Rouge. And with pronouns in her bio. So believes that men can be women and women can be men. Okay, so we can't even get the fundamental element of biological reality clear with this lady. It should be no surprise to you that she would then go on to condemn, measures to control illegal, or stop even, illegal migration, arguing that they undermine making Wales a nation of sanctuary. Really shocking, considering illegal migrants cost taxpayers billions of pounds. So we're going to play this video for you now, ladies and gentlemen, from the floor of the Senedd. And we're going to listen to what Miss whatever. Sorry, I might be using the wrong pronouns, I forgot. What Ms. Williams has to say.
Plaid Cymru has voiced our utter condemnation of this illegal migration bill many times, both in this place and in the Houses of Parliament. And again, I would assert that illegal it certainly is, with human rights organisations in complete agreement, as we've heard, and even the Home Secretary unable to deny that the bill is incompatible with the international human rights treaties of which the UK is a signatory, including the European Convention on Human Rights, the 1951 Refugee Convention, and the 1948 Universal Declaration.
Just before we go on, Isn't it fitting how when it supports their agenda, when these organizations support their agenda, they're quick to cite them, quick to go along with them. When anything then goes against them, that's when we say Wales should be able to set their own things right. It's kind of funny how they want to isolate us from our sister nations, namely England, Ireland and Scotland, despite the conflict that's obviously gone on between these nations on these isles, okay? So despite that, it's all well and good then. They want to say Wales has this choice, Wales should be able to govern itself, independence, all of these ideas, fantastical ideas, right? Obviously, Wales is not isolated on the world. It's not the only country in the world, obviously. But when all of these organizations, the ECHR, the UN, all of these globalist organizations saying, yeah, we need more of these super educated Africans or Algerians, whatever it's going to be. Oh, yeah, we condemn all of the people trying to stop this and to keep Wales, secure in its borders, keep the Welsh people safe, all of these things. And then when it's, a policy coming down from Westminster, even it might be a relatively good policy. Obviously, these people are constantly attacking reform for some of their policies. And, me, I'm no fan of reform. Okay, no fan of reform whatsoever. But obviously, there's this infighting that's all going on. And then they're all like, oh, Wales should be free to choose. Wales should be independent and all of these things, unless it's going back into the EU and being governed by the ECHR, the EU, the UN, and all of these other organizations, right? These are Welsh nationalists. Is this really the best Wales could do? Is this really the best Wales could do?
Of human rights. Llywydd no member of this Senedd should consent to a bill that could require Wales to breach international human rights law, contrary to our own devolution settlement. Plaid Cymru agrees with the Welsh Government that it undermines the rights of unaccompanied asylum seeker children and young people and is completely and shamefully incompatible with the child first, migrant second approach.
What about the Welsh people? What about the Welsh children? What about them that are being impoverished, that are being made into a serf slave class, that are growing up with no ability to have any future ambitions outside of being a grunt for the regime? What about them? What about their human rights? Oh wait, can't say that. That's racist.
That upholds the best interests and rights of children in Wales, and it is wholly inconsistent with our commitment of being a nation of sanctuary.
I have the opinion, can't say that you're doing the best for people and the children of Wales and be a nation of sanctuary. I'm sorry, you can't, because a lot of the places where these people are coming from that are going to be taking advantage of this nation of sanctuary system have values and a culture that is completely diametrically opposed to ours. Okay? Our culture... Not only, I believe Elon Musk said it well, a nation is its people. Not only is a nation its people, not only when you start replacing the people, you start replacing the nation. Okay, that's why ethnic demographic replacement is absolutely a concern, no matter how much that admittance is going to make you uncomfortable. Okay? It's a bit like where I initially kind of thought this way, but even then I was thinking, well, no, you can't replace people to this extent and expect the nation to remain the same. We are, in terms of our values, how the law is set up in this country, whether it's from the UK government or Wales in particular, at least at one point was heavily based on Christianity. Okay, you can't get around that. And the biggest thing is I see a lot of infighting on the right at the moment, on the right, on the nationalist, populist side, being like, no, it's not Christianity that made the nation, it's the people that make the nation. And I'm the person to believe, I believe it's both. And I spoke a little bit about this on Josh Fernie, for example. He sent me something, I'll see if I can find it, the things he sent me in the next episode, where... a lot of the concentrations of rape statistics in Africa, for example, are coming out of nations that would identify as predominantly Christian nations. Okay, so this is a massive problem. And that's where, for example, instantly seeing that, I would see that the people within these nations are obviously not being very good Christians, if that's the case. But where you take people from these nations, a lot of people who are on sort of like the civic nationalists, I suppose you could say, or like just the regular conservative, almost like slightly to the right of the Tory kind of people, like Lawrence Fox, for example, said this, where he was in a space with Steve Laws. And eventually Lawrence Fox came up with a post where he said, I think he was basically saying that we need nigh on preferential treatment for white British people in Britain, these kinds of things, to reverse these kinds of things. And Steve called him out and said, you literally said that if you were to replace the ethnic British population with, turn the native British population to 95% African, 5%, you know, white English, would you, but they were all Christians, would you think that that would somehow not change the demographic of not change anything about the country? And Lawrence actually said yes. Lawrence said yes. He was on record. The space was recorded, and the Steve shared the video from that, being like, well, no, you can't say this now when you said this literally a couple of months ago. And I was saying that as somebody that's seen some of the things that Steve posts, and is a bit like, I think Steve was like, he was instrumental with Active Patriot and people like that were first documenters of the crisis going on down in Dover, where Border Force are going in and shepherding these people to the country when they should be, you know, enforcing the borders, all of these kinds of things, and really documenting the scale of the problem. And it was them, namely Steve Laws and Active Patriot, that then sparked Nigel Farage, in my opinion, to then go onto the channel and do his things. He wouldn't have done it otherwise, in my opinion, or at least he wouldn't have done it as soon, and he wouldn't have been as forceful with it. He wouldn't have called it the immigration election, and obviously now they've gone back on all of that kind of stuff, right? Tories are now saying they're going to reduce net migration to like 350,000 a year, and be like, no, go away. You're irrelevant. I would love to, in the sorry state that they're in, the Tories and obviously Labour in power at the moment, Tories need to die. Tories need to absolutely die. So, getting back on track, when we're saying that it is a nation that makes its people, it is a people that makes its nation. Sorry, it is Welsh people that make the nation Welsh. It is English people that make the nation English. It is Scots that make Scotland Scotland. Okay, you can't get around that. No matter how uncomfortable with how much anti-racist, multicultural programming you have to get around. Okay, we're not all the same. We're not all of the same. It's that simple. Not just in values, but simply put, we're not all the same. Okay? Now, I do believe, however, the values in place from the Bible do play a massive role, as I was saying. And I've kind of lost my train of thought a little bit now, going down that massive rabbit hole. But you can't get around the fact that the ethnic replacement of our nations is a massive problem, and the people where the places where these people are coming from, they're completely different people to us. They bring completely different values and cultures. They're bringing their family members along, and they reproduce at a much greater rate than we do. And sooner or later, they just, and I don't mean to say this, they're not necessarily coming over like an armed, violent takeover kind of way, but eventually we will be simply overtaken. And it will be this suicidal empathy that does it. It will be this suicidal empathy that turns Wales into a Middle Eastern country, or to an African country, to a whatever other place, right? With completely different norms, completely different standards. And when you become an ethnic minority in a lot of the countries where these people are coming in from, influxing into our country, things don't tend to end well for ethnic minorities, especially Christians. So we really, really do need to be concerned about this. And politicians, senior politicians like Sean Edbayer, saying things like this should be setting alarm bells running in your head, especially if you have children, or if you want to have children in the future, or if even you want your country to, I say, remain free, right? We're not a free country, but in any sense of the imagination. But if you want to prosper for the rest of your life and have a positive impact on the world, then you really, really need to be concerned, I think, first and foremost, about the population replacement, the demographic replacement that is going on. And people like Plaid, parties like Plaid, and people like Sean Ed are cheering this on because all they see is future votes. They don't care about you. Labour doesn't care about you. I don't think the Conservatives care much either, got to be honest. At this point, I keep bearing in mind, because one of the most dangerous sentiments you can get into I talked about this in my conversation with James, where the biggest thing that got him to go down the very dark path that he went down with the NatSoc, the Nationalist Socialist ideology, was this belief that there was no political solution, that there was this impending race war coming, right? Very, very scary place, very, very scary headspace to be in. And it was a conversation with him where he showed me how dangerous that thought pattern was, but then also made clear that, no, there are political solutions, and we do need to keep that up. I don't know what political solutions we have in Wales at the moment. I do believe that you know, there has to be one on the table. Otherwise, again, what does that leave the door open to? What other alternative do we have, right? But I've been seeing, it seems to be that Plaid are getting a lot of traction at the moment. Or it seems to be that Plaid are getting some traction at the moment, and that should scare everybody. Now, it tells you a lot when, how did Ms. Williams, for example, react? How did she react when she was called out? And it should be no surprise. It should be no surprise whatsoever. So in response to that video, they then posted an update, i.e. Doge Wales posted an update. And all she did was she blocked them. No surprise. It should surprise nobody. Okay? Because the Senedd Waste page, they're not massive at the moment. They're just under 4,000 followers in all, but they do seem to have quite a bit of influence, and they're very, very active. They're very, very active on X in particular and on social media. And again, they highlight a great point, is that these people won't engage in debate. They're complete ideologues. They won't engage in debate. They see people like Senedd Waste. They see people like us, people who have genuine concerns, just regular Welsh people who want the best for themselves, for the future of their nation and for their families, okay, as Untermenschen, you know, as, you know, undesirables, as Hillary Clinton would say. They only care about the votes that are coming in across the channel and from all of these other places, right? They care about virtue signaling. That's all they care about. They care about that feeling of doing good by this weird, arbitrary, globalist standard of we are the oppressors for some reason, that we have to, surrender our nation to a bunch of foreigners, and we can't have our own culture, can't have our own language, can't have our own money or anything like that. Got to scan QR codes to go everywhere. And, oh, wait, there'll be the refugees that for some reason get free bus passes and all of this stuff. But no, it'll be us that have to foot the bill for everything. And the socialist politicians, like those in Plaid, like those in Labour, will do nothing but kick back and enjoy their ludicrous salaries, their multiple houses, their private jet flights, while lecturing us about our climate emissions, mind you. Oh, we can't have farmers with cows, but so-called eco-warriors have to take private jet flights everywhere. You know, your Bernie Sanderses and your AOCs, all right? Tremendous video came out the other day of Bernie Sanders. And I believe, I'll have to try and find it. I will try and find it. It came out on the end, I believe it was the End Wokeness account of Bernie Sanders, and he was being asked about his, activism and how, how he can justify all of these like flights and stuff like that. And it was an amazing video that was spliced together, of how he said he made no apologies. He makes no apologies of how he takes private jets and all of these things, and owns multiple houses, and all while saying we need to tax the billionaires. Sorry, we can't tax the millionaires anymore because Bernie's a multimillionaire. So we can't tax the billionaires anymore. We can't tax the millionaires anymore. We have to tax the billionaires, of course. He's one of those people that we have to. I can't find the video. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I'll have to find it another time. But of course, one of these people, the only people who will have to be taxed are the people lower than him and the people just richer than him. Okay, those are the people that have to be taxed, of course. So anyway, mentioned before that this is a post from Plaid from June 6th last year. Does it appear that they've changed track since this? When I tell you that they are fake nationalists, this is what I mean. They're quote-unquote Welsh nationalists. They couldn't be further from actual nationalists. Because, as I said, they want to isolate us from our sister nations, okay? England, Scotland, and Ireland. They want to isolate us from them, mainly with regards to Westminster and the Great Britain, okay? Mainly want to isolate us from that. But they want to take us straight back into the arms of the EU bureaucracy, which, is showing that democracy, as we understand it, is potentially the biggest scam that we are seeing ongoing and peddled at the moment. And that's why there's uprisings all over the world. Romania, when the wrong candidate was elected. France, when the wrong candidate was likely to be elected. Okay, in Germany, since the what's their name? Is it the CID? Is that their name? Like the centre left party, the Angela Merkel party that got back in for some fucking reason. Some reason now they got. I question the legitimacy of every election at this point. With how much we saw in 2020, with the mysterious millions of votes that turned up last minute for Joe Biden and the Democrats, for how much in this election, which again they had to make too big to rig, because we were seeing how they were trying to rig the election at every standpoint. They were having machines that would supposedly glitch out and put Kamala when you meant to put Trump. There was evidence that there was again those mail-in ballots and voter machine tampering going on. I believe Patrick Bet-David had a podcast with somebody that just brought someone on with a voting machine, and he went through step by step how these machines can be rigged. Okay, and there was numerous evidence where, again, when they would cast when they would scan a barcode, because obviously, like, different states have different ways that they vote in America. Some of them might be like us, where we put an X in a box with a pencil. Some of them, they have these electronic voting machines, right? And that when you would scan the barcode on the ballots to cast your vote, it would come up with the opposite candidate's name. It would never come up with Trump, you would come up with Kamala all the time. And yeah, there were so many things that were so suspect. And if you, honestly, still believe if you still believe that Trump is in his second term or his third term, as he wasn't in office from 2020 to 2024, obviously, that's when America was, I think, on the brink of absolute destruction. If Kamala had gotten in, God knows what would have happened. Never would have been any peace in the Middle East. Never would have been. America would still be funding both sides of that war. There'd never be, any talk of the NATO alliance being rumbled because of, the constant war hawking. All of this kind of stuff, right, never would have happened. And say what you want about Trump. I was having a conversation with somebody in church about this today. I was like, say what you want about Trump, okay? A lot of people have gripes with Trump because of what he's doing and how it's affecting the UK, those kinds of things. Tariffs are going to be coming on us and all of these things. One thing that you can't say is that at least you have to say, though, is at least he's doing what the American people voted him in to do. Okay? He's the American president. He's not the British president. He's not the Venezuelan president. He's not the Mexican president. He's the American president. And that means he should be doing what is in the best interests of America and of the American people. It's refreshing. It should tell you how refreshing it is when you're looking at people like Dominic, I don't know how to say his second name because he's Polish, Dominic Czerjinski, maybe I say his name, the guy with the iconic, when he's addressing I think it's the EU Parliament, and he's saying how great Poland is, the not one bit of illegal migration. Poland is the safest country. There's no terror attacks. There's all of these things. The greatest economic growth across a period of time was in Poland, and he has this iconic zero illegal migration. Zero terrorist attacks, and he says it in that really emphatic way. People like Viktor Orban, and people call him like a simp for Russia and all of these things, but at least you say he's putting in policies that benefit the Hungarian people. Then he's encouraging women to have big families with tax rebates and all these things you'd never see in this country, because they want to destroy the family, right? They want to destroy the family unit, because the family unit is ultimately the biggest roadblock to government tyranny. It is the biggest roadblock to government tyranny, the family unit. And that's where, again, this will be an episode in and of itself, and I'm hoping to have another good interview scheduled in the future in June for this, why feminism has been one of the biggest lies we've ever been sold. One of the most evil lies we've ever been sold. But I mentioned before that these fake nationalists that are Plaid Cymru, going back off that tangent, getting back onto the fake nationalists that are Plaid Cymru, I'm going to show you this now. So, I mentioned Plaid Cymru want to take us back into the EU, and be governed by that bureaucracy, be part of that single market, pardon me, and have the same democracy that's currently affecting France and Romania and all these other things, right? So here we go. They said, when will we see the benefits of Brexit? We won't. Now, I don't actually think they're lying there, right? I don't actually think they're lying when they say we won't see the benefits of Brexit, because it's been purposely scuppered at every single turn. People believe that this was the plan. People believe that this was the plan for Brexit and that it's just failed. No, it's been sabotaged at every single turn. It's like saying, right, you got two people running a race and they both, the starting gun goes off and they're running this race, and the one is running completely unimpeded. And the other is having to run, but every single time he steps in a bear trap, right? That's literally what's happened with Brexit. The Brexit is the runner is having to step in every single fucking bear trap, and then people, there'll be two sides to this. People will look at what's happening. The other runner's gone and finished the race, is basking in all its glory, and this is the runner that represents the return to the EU, and global government and constant war, all of these things, right? And serfdom. Lack of national sovereignty, all of these things. So, and then the Brexit runner obviously has been scuppered at every single turn, because nothing that was promised in Brexit has been delivered on. I firmly believe that Nigel Farage exiting at what should have been a crowning moment in victory sort of cemented what he thought of the entire thing. And since then, people have gone and thought, oh, maybe he's not such a good runner. They forget that there's a bunch of bear traps in the way. They forget that every single thing that's happened has been betrayed at every single turn. Forget that Keir Starmer, and apparently the democratic nation of the UK, is now just going to take us into the EU through the back door anyway, if some reports to be believed. The party of democracy, mind you, the guys of democracy. We've got to protect democracy, right? And Plaid would just want to do the same. Plaid will somehow, as I said, be even worse than Labour. And here it is. This is, I believe it's the leader of Plaid, or at least somebody who's speaking on behalf of Plaid. I'm not sure who it is. It doesn't say who the name is, from BBC Question Time. And I'm going to play this for you now, ladies and gentlemen, where they say it's time to rejoin the single market and the customs union.
People will look back at this time and think it is frankly ridiculous that we have shut down our trading relationships with our nearest neighbours. I'm talking to a horticultural business recently, and when they import into a port, since the 30th of April, so this has been brought in by the government, untold to them, there is a random cost of £600 on certain lorries. And then lorry drivers who come from the continent will have to wait for 15 hours. They don't even have a cup of coffee there, and many of them don't want to come back again. Now, I don't see what that good is doing for the economy. For Plaid Cymru, yes, we want to rejoin.
Sorry, I'm just going to pause there a minute. This person here, this gender climate Marxist, be very dangerous as well. Greens and Plaid, very, very similar. This person may look and sound stupid when you hear their voice and when you see the things that they say on social media, but they're very dangerous. Make no mistake about it.
For Plaid Cymru, yes, we want to rejoin the single market and the customs union. We think that is an advantage for young people also to be able to work. And I would ask Labour, because the Mayor of London has commissioned work that...
So again, national sovereignty, except when, national sovereignty doesn't matter. Control over, import, export, all of these things, right? As I said, Brexit has been an absolute bungle, absolute mess. Let's make no mistake about it, but that was on purpose. Okay? Brexit was the people saying to the Conservative establishment at the time, and I should tell you a lot, because the Conservative establishment at the time did not want Brexit. Did not want Brexit. That was like the ultimate backfiring, virtue signalling move against that establishment, was that people went 52 to 48, and they didn't want them to. In what was basically a glorified opinion poll, it wasn't marketed that way, obviously, and because they called it a referendum, they had to follow through on it to some extent, because David Cameron, the lovely globalist that he is, did not want that to go that way. It was very, very upsetting when people went that way. Obviously, then plans had to be put in motion to scupper it at every single turn so that it looked like it was horribly doomed to fail, and they would give all these people that wanted to remain in that technocrat, bureaucrat hellhole that is the EU, reason to be like, well, look, you guys tried this, it didn't work. I'd be like, what's been tried? Obviously, one of the biggest things was that we were meant to have control of migration. And obviously, that's gone completely out of control since Brexit, by design. And even Keir Starmer admitted that.
Put the cost to the economy at £140 billion less because of the effects of Brexit as they stand. Surely, if this election is about the economy, is about the cost of living, there is a duty on the two parties who between them seem to always assume that they will be leading alone and unalloyed by any other influence. There is a duty on you, Labour and Tory representatives, to face up to the fact that we are doing ourselves untold damage and to start to make a difference.
However unpopular it may be, however many people would not want to admit this, the number one thing, at least in my opinion, number one thing that's going to improve us economically, as well as do all of the other biggest things, is one of the things that even certain people who I may disagree with from other political standpoints, you know, their standpoint on the conflict in the Middle East and stuff like that, for example, their general view of other people who aren't ethnic British or, you know, ethnic Welsh, English, Scottish, etc. I may disagree with them on that. The number one thing which a lot of these people do say, though, is the number one thing that is going to improve us in the situation that we are in is remigration. You know, the big talking point at the moment is we need more immigrants, so we need more immigration. Because our public services are collapsing, because all of these things are happening, right? The NHS, all of these things, right? Hey, when they say that the NHS was built by immigrants and stuff like that. No, it was built, the idea for it was built by a guy that lived less than 10 minutes away from where I am right now when he was alive. Okay? He was the brainchild, the NHS was his brainchild. He was a Welshman by the name of Aneurin Bevan. Obviously, and he was from Tredegar. Anyway, the big talking point is that we need this positive feedback loop of immigration because that we can't replace our own population, because people are lazy, because we have an aging population, because our public services are collapsing, because the NHS is collapsing. We don't think that when you let more people in, that automatically provides more strain, simply because you have more people coming in. You have more people coming in and they're bringing their dependents. Okay, so then they have to be cared for. So you're saying that, well, hang on, we need this person to come in order to make up for the shortfall, but they're bringing more people in, which then increases the shortfall again. And then this problem it massively compounds. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But somehow we think that the solution that we need is more hill and more snow in order to solve this problem. When no, in reality, and as a trainer, right, as a personal trainer and health coach, it's very, very similar to what happens. What happens when people think that they're not losing weight because they're eating too little. And that cannot happen by definition. What's happening is they're not losing weight because energy balance is being equated, right? Now apply this on the wider scale of immigration. You'll see where I'm going with this in a moment. It would be like that person trying to lose weight. And losing weight in this instance is representative of improving public services, decreasing wait times in hospital waiting rooms, you know, better job prosperity, all of these things, right? All of these things that are meant to, you know, wages up, prices down, etc. Less terror attacks as well, hopefully. So that's the indicative. When those things are happening, the person's successfully losing weight. But what's happening is the person is not in a state of negative energy balance. So no matter what they're doing, it's not coming off. Okay. Now, what the person would be doing, what the solution that we are coming to for our problems, and that the solution that this hypothetical person would be coming to for their weight loss problem, is that, oh, I need to eat more. I'm not losing weight because I'm not eating enough. And instantly when you do that, you see how this entire system whereby we say we need more people to make up for the shortfalls completely falls apart. No, we need people to leave. We need people to A, stop coming here, and B, to leave. And I don't care how uncomfortable that makes you. It's true. Because what does that person need in order to lose weight? They need the food to stop coming in and the body fat they currently have to leave, namely being converted into ATP, and then ultimately when that's used up, they'll exhale it as CO2 for the most part. So anyway, that's the analogy there. It's like a person trying to lose weight but thinking that they need to eat more, and then it's unsurprising then when they start eating more and more and more, even if it's super clean foods, even if they're just eating an extra 2 meals of chicken, broccoli and rice every single day. It's no wonder then when they're not losing weight, but odds are they'll start gaining weight, because then the calorie balance has shifted into positive energy balance, and then they start storing the weight, they start storing the energy that's coming in. And then we get a more bloated bureaucracy, because all of these people that are coming in, they're bringing their dependents and they're adding to the system and making it stodgier and more unworkable. So the number one thing, whether you like it or not, the number one thing, whether you like it or not, that's going to improve every single public service, the NHS, waiting room times, it's going to improve economic outlook, it's going to even improve our ability to then replace our own population. And yes, we're going to have to go through a lot of suffering in the short term. Make no mistake about it. We're in a war. We're in a war in this regard. But it's not a war that's being fought with, you know, guns and bullets and stuff and gas. It's a war that's being fought with culture, with values, and with a want to survive, basically, and doing what's necessary to do that. It's a war that's being fought with tradition. And that goes back to my point about feminism earlier. Feminism was a complete upending of Western tradition, complete upending of the family. These people want the opposite of that. These people want to make the bureaucracy even worse. They want to make you even more fat and unhealthy. They want to make the nation more fat and unhealthy and bloated. They don't want the nation being lean, toned and muscular like America is increasingly showing at the moment. So we want, at least America's got a swagger back. At least America's got a swagger back. You know, there's been some pitfalls it's fallen into. I don't think the vetting has gone very well on Trump's side, you know, with a lot of the picks that he's made. I don't think, Kash Patel seems to have been very, very quiet on a certain big, you know, billionaire trafficking, you know, kind of issue, which he said would be sorted on day one. You know, very, you know, that's a massive black mark, obviously against Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, and obviously then by necessity Trump's administration. Wasn't happy with his verdict on things like the Chagos deal and stuff like that. I wasn't happy when J.D. Vance... I was happy when J.D. Vance said this, is that any trade deal with the UK would hinge on the UK adopting strong free speech laws, okay, repealing some of this hate speech legislation, not putting people in prison for, you know, videoing the aftermath of riots or saying that a killer killed, you know, a certain killer of a certain characteristic and ethnic background, you know, killed 3 children, and saying the truth, okay? And then when it came to the deal, even Winston Marshall asked, I believe it was Caroline Leavitt, Trump's press secretary, if America would take, you know, asylees from Britain under the current Keir Starmer regime. Is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek question, I think, but it's not without foundation, not without foundation. They didn't really have an answer for it. But then when the press conference came after the UK trade deal was signed, I can't remember what his name was, but somebody who was in the room speaking on behalf of President Trump said that the free speech thing was never a consideration in this meeting with regards to the trade deal. And obviously that made J.D. Vance look really stupid. That gave a massive load of egg on J.D. Vance's face, which could have easily been avoided. You know, if he just come out and said that it just hadn't, either he hadn't said that, or if it was the administration that went, if that was the original plan, but the administration went back on it, black mark against them, at least from our perspective, right? So, you know, I'm a big fan of Trump in his character, personally, in his personality. I like the swagger, I like, you know, the masculine energy, right? And, you know, not everything in his life has been good, you know what I mean? But you read your Bible, you know that people who were prophets in that story, you know, they have very checkered lives and all of these things, right? Nobody's perfect, and we're quick to point the finger, especially if it's one of our ideological and political opponents, right? So nobody's perfect, but I certainly like that America's got its swagger back. A strong America is good for the world, make no mistake about it. But yeah, there's obviously been some things there that haven't gone so well, and very, very sad to see, at least from our perspective. And like I was saying, here's another one from here. So we have Delith Jewel, who is an MS for Plaid Cymru, tell somebody by the name of Faisal Islam why they want to rejoin the EU customs union and single market on BBC Newsnight. So again, if the first clip didn't convince you, as I said, they say in open terms they want to take us back into the EU to be governed by the global bureaucracy. Well, here's more of that for you.
Wales voted for Brexit, didn't it? And so an independent one would have also left the European Union.
Well, in terms of the opinion polls, I think the successive opinion polls have shown that opinion has shifted, and Brexit is doing untold harm to our communities in terms of red tape faced by businesses.
As I said, it's not the bear traps that are in the way of the runner that's the problem. It's the runner.
In terms of the extra costs that people are facing. And I think that it shows a lack of conviction and courage from the parties that they're not willing to face up to that reality. Plaid Cymru is fighting to make sure that our economy actually benefits from rejoining the single market and the customs union. It is patently clear that that is what needs to happen for our economy. I just wish the Labour Party would catch up and would stop trying to second chance or second guess what they think people want them to be saying. They should be leading from the front rather than just chasing what they think public opinion might be.
But Wales voted...
No. As I said, I made the perfectly good case. The biggest thing that's going to increase our economic prosperity, biggest thing that's going to make sure we survive as a people and as a culture and as a nation, is going to be more people leaving, more non-Welsh people leaving, I should say, than coming in. And that's just the reality of the situation. No matter that opinion poll has shifted, doesn't matter. See, there's very, very good propaganda campaign that's been waged against Brexit, against the ideals of Brexit, that has been very, very effective. Make no mistake about it. It's been very, very effective. But again, the Plaid Cymru claims to be for the British people. Claims to be for the Welsh people. Sorry, they don't claim to be for the British people. They claim to be for the Welsh people. They claim to be for the benefit of Wales. But let me read you this extract from their website now, which is about their nation of sanctuary. Pardon me. It's going to be an amazing piece on Plaid Cymru's website. So it says, Wales here, a nation of sanctuary. Wales should have the powers and resources to make good on our pledge to become a nation of sanctuary. We were disappointed by Labour's recent removal of the welcome ticket in Wales, which allowed free transport for refugees on public transport. That's what these guys are upset about. They're not upset about... Some people I was talking to the other day, I found out had a personal experience with this, about taxi drivers in cities like Swansea of a certain descent and typically of a certain religious persuasion, you know, preying on young girls, young drunk girls to do, you know, untold awful things to them, okay? You know, prowling around the city looking for their prey, predators looking for their prey, right? And a personal story of somebody that I know. She was on a night out in Swansea. This was a good many years ago. And, you know, got into this taxi, and it was this, you know, man of, I believe, Middle Eastern descent and of a certain religious persuasion. And she was on her own, which already I said to her straight away, I was like, that's your first red flag. Like, that's your first mistake. But then she said, like, look, can you take me to here? Obviously, he didn't. Next thing you know, he's stopping somewhere and three others are getting in the car, and she's having then to fight to get out. Luckily, she did. But it massively shook her up, and she said she had to call her friend to, call her friend to come and pick her up, and then she stayed with him, thank God. So thank God she was okay, but that was a very, very close call. Some people, as we know, to the tune of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, are not so lucky. But that's what Plaid Cymru are concerned about. That these people who are coming here, mind you, on loopholes through things like Deliveroo and Uber Eats and things like that, they're upset that these people can't ride for free on public transport. You can't, mind you. Why can't you? At the end of the day, you're of this nation, if you're a Welsh person. If you're of Welsh blood, you're of this nation. Shouldn't you be getting the benefits before some person who's not from here? I think so. We oppose Conservative proposals to increase the skilled worker and family visa thresholds and fee increases. So literally they're saying here, we oppose proposals to increase the skilled worker and family visa thresholds. They're literally saying, you want more. One of the biggest things we were sold, right, on immigration is that we're bringing in doctors, we're bringing in surgeons, we're bringing in all these amazing people, right? We need the best and the brightest from all across the world. And here's Plaid saying, no, we don't want that. So now they say we need to bring in more and more and more and more and more to the detriment of our own communities, our own people, our own societies, our own nation. They literally say, no, we don't want the most skilled. We just want the people because we want their votes. Okay. And make no mistake, they're giving people that come here on asylum regulations. They're giving people that come here illegally the right to vote. We're seeing it in Ireland at the moment. We support the Migration Advisory Committee's recommendation that the graduate route visa be retained. We are concerned that current proposals will detrimentally affect universities, including Bangor and Aberystwyth, with a knock-on effect upon local communities where universities are major employers. Yep. This is where we're in serious trouble, because the universities are the massive hotbed for this left-wing, cultural Marxist indoctrination. Things like Confucius Institutes, which if you listen to my episode with James Harvey, you'll know all about those. Make sure you go and listen to those if you haven't too. Confucius Institute is basically a link between a Welsh university with a Chinese one, and they have much infrastructure then that allows the Chinese Communist Party to literally spy on Chinese students and stuff like that, and literally spy into our country. It's mad. It's absolutely mad. But yeah, the graduate route is very much a big scam as well, because then they're just allowed to stay. They come here on a student visa, they're just allowed to stay, and then they're allowed to vote in our elections. I'll be like, no, you shouldn't have the right to do that. I can't go to a Chinese university and then vote in their elections. So why should they have the right to do the same? We would support the repeal of previous punitive legislation, which is part of the hostile environment, quote unquote, including the Nationality and Borders Act 2022 and the Illegal Migration Act of 2023. These people are literally saying it. They're literally putting it in writing. People think that they're Welsh nationalists. They literally say, here, let me show you. Hang on, let me recrop it for you. So here you go, ladies and gentlemen. Literally here they're saying, we would support the repeal of previous punitive legislation which is part of the hostile environment, including the Nationality and Borders Act and the Illegal Migration Act. This is literally from their website. This is literally from the Plaid Cymru website. They're literally saying it. Anybody that thinks they're a party of Wales is deluded on a scale I never thought was possible. I never thought was possible, but they're literally saying it out loud. Here you go. Plaid Cymru supports the UK remaining a member of the European Court of Human Rights, and we support maintaining the human rights which we collectively uphold. And they're similar to Quebec and Canada. Quebec and Canada currently being overtaken by another. Trudeau was a massive globalist that came before. Now they got Mark Carney, which is absolutely tremendous. Photographed and videoed many times alongside Ghislaine Maxwell. Ooh, I wonder what she's involved in. Honestly. And then you have this section. Refugees. Plaid Cymru reaffirms its commitment for Wales to become a nation of sanctuary and is determined to ease the experience of refugees and people seeking asylum wherever possible. That's what their concern is. That's what their concern is. It's not you, if you're a Welsh person. It's not you. It'd be even more dangerous than Labour. Make no mistake about it. As has been seen, local authorities have a key role in helping refugees settle initially. All Plaid Cymru-led local authorities have stated their intention to welcome families and individuals from Ukraine, for example, and have helped in settling Afghan and Syrian refugee families and individuals within their communities. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but I'm sorry. When was Assad deposed again? The Syrians can go home now. There's no reason for them to be here anymore. There's no reason for them to be here anymore except for the fact that, oh, wait, they have the right to vote, and that, oh, wait, we've disillusioned ourselves. We've made the local populace, we've made the Welsh people very disillusioned with the political system, and they're probably not going to vote for us anymore. Oh, wait, we need those people to stay to retain our electoral power. And then you see what the whole con is. You see what this massive con is. And literally, for example, again, equalities. Plaid Cymru believes that tackling all forms of injustice is an essential part of restructuring and rebuilding a fairer society. I say, what about a fair society for the Welsh people? Oh wait, Plaid don't care about that. Plaid don't care about that. Never have. Never will. You know, maybe around the time of the 60s, from what I've read, before Cwm Trwywen was flooded, you know, by the Liverpool Corporation. You know, for them to have a reservoir that would take water back to England, and obviously people were uprooted from their homes. You know, not by no means a massively staunch supporter of Westminster and everything they've done throughout history. Okay, See, being Welsh, I believe there's been a lot of injustices done in the past by the collectively of Britain. You only need to look back. In my community, for example, heavy mining community, you only need to look back 40 years and see what Maggie Thatcher done to understand why people really, really hate her name. Really, really hate her name around these parts. Okay, and I fully understand why. I think she was completely right on things like socialism and stuff like that, absolutely. But in terms of the, massive crackdown on miners and stuff like that she undertook, violent crackdown on striking miners, yeah, really, really not good. And we're seeing that this is the thing now. Very similar things to what she done back then, we're seeing Labour do now with the farmers. So again, don't tell me this is only a one-sided affair. Don't tell me that it's evil when Maggie Thatcher does it, and it's not evil when Labour do it now. Because we need to get rid of those tight fists. We need to get rid of those kulaks. We need to teach them a lesson, right? That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about to them, the class enemy. But again, truly, I say to you, these people will be more destructive even than Labour. I want to play you something now. So this is my version, basically, of the daily cancellation. So, if you've listened to the show at all for any period of time, that I'm a big fan of Matt Walsh. I think he's a great guy. I think he's very, very, educated and, does a lot of good things. He's done a lot of good things in the culture war and things like that, especially with regards to what was going on the absolute lunacy of, his What is a Woman documentary and all of these things, right? I think he's been a really, really good voice for the most part. I think he's been a really, really good voice. And when I was listening to his show, when I was in hospital recovering from my illness, it was one of the predominant sources of content that I was consuming on like a daily basis. And I really, really, really enjoyed his content. Found him captivating. Found him, people were saying that he's this, fascist figure and all of this, right? I didn't really see that so much. I'm not gonna lie. I thought he's just a really good guy and really made me appreciate made me really appreciate family values, and his content, a lot of stuff really speaks to me on a personal level and how I've lived my life, and got me to think about a lot of the things that I've done and those kinds of things. It's been very, very influential on me. So now I'm gonna do what is my ape on the daily cancellation. And today I'm going to cancel BBC, the entire BBC. I wish I could. But literally, this is how stupid they think you are, right? So this is, again, a clip from what passes for news and what passes for weather documentation in this country now. Apparently, we're all meant to stay in today because it was one of the hottest days on record and it was 26 degrees out. It was absolutely nothing. But, we had to stay in. We didn't have to stay in, but we were advised to stay in from 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. I think that is a preliminary for when that will not be a choice anymore, but that will be forced. And I put a post up on X and I said, incoming, country has to be locked down because sun is out a little bit too much, right? Because climate change. But these people want you to believe, for some reason, somehow, not explanation of why, mind, bear in mind it's only a 10-second clip, so maybe they did, that trees are somehow losing the ability to photosynthesize. Trees are losing their ability to soak up carbon dioxide, contributing to climate change. Obviously, climate change is the religion for these people. Well, the religion, I suppose, is intersectionality. I suppose that's the religion, the leftist religion of today. I can't help but see how this doesn't stem from like a secular atheism, right? Is intersectionality. And that's where you get race Marxism, that's where you get feminism, that's where you get the whole trans stuff. You get outright Marxism and economic communism, right? All of these things that are interweaved into each other, intersectional with each other. And climate change is obviously one of them. And now they expect you to believe that trees are somehow, and again, no explanation given, losing their ability to soak up carbon dioxide, contributing to climate change. They think you're this stupid. Yes, they do. This was said on national news in the UK. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you whatever this presenter's name is. I don't know her name. This is how stupid they think you are.
Researchers are also worried that forests are losing their ability to soak up carbon, which could be contributing to record levels of warming gas in the atmosphere, with more than a third.
So that's how stupid That's how stupid they think you are. They think they are, and people will. People will. They will buy into this. You only need to think about it for longer than this video plays to think, hang on, why now? Trees have existed. One of the first things that ever came into existence, right? You know, trees, the act of taking oxygen from the, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, bringing it in and converting it to oxygen is, you know, not quite literally a tale as old as time, but one of the first things came into existence on the planet was trees, right? You know, the trees have been here for hundreds of years. But now we're supposed to believe that they can't take up carbon anymore. They've just forgotten? What have they done? They've just forgotten? They just, trees in the Amazon being like, what are we doing again? I've forgotten how to do it. What are we doing again? No, of course not. Of course not. But they think you're stupid, and people will buy into it. People will absolutely buy into this and be fooled by it. And it just gives them more of an excuse to fleece you and me for our money. Because, then somehow you know that this problem will be able to be solved with more taxes. And that's how you know that this problem is somehow going to be miraculously solved. But, you know, it's never actually going to get solved because they've been saying the same thing. They've been saying the same thing over and over. John Kerry, I believe, in the early 2000s was on the floor of, I believe it was the US Senate or US Congress, saying that scientists predict that in the next 10, 15 years or like 5 years, 6 years, that the ice sheet in the Antarctic will have a completely iceless Arctic in like 6 years due to climate change. And I just saw a headline the other day, and in fact, the opposite has happened. Because the planet is relatively cool at the moment, the ice sheet has actually expanded for the first time ever in recorded history. The exact opposite of what these people are saying are always true, it seems. So no, rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, the trees have not forgotten how to do the one thing that they do that allows us to sustain life on this planet. Make no mistake about it. So you can go to sleep soundly tonight, knowing that when you wake up tomorrow, trees are going to be absorbing carbon dioxide, if there's even any in the environment by that point. Carbon dioxide, always worth remembering, makes up about 0.3 to 0.4% of the atmosphere, but that is the one gas we got to wage war on. It's the one gas, it's the one substance trees use to convert to oxygen, and that with the higher emissions that we've had in recent history all over the world, that there's been an area bigger than the size of the continental United States across the world that has greened, that was previously, you know, semi-arid desert conditions. But yet we're supposed to believe that more carbon, more CO2 is killing the planet. Imagine telling your plants that up to a certain point, obviously, like anything, you can overfeed it to death, like you can overwater your plants to death and all of those things. That giving something more food is going to make it shrivel out and starve to death. Again, think back to that example that we used with the person and immigration earlier. And you realize the case for remigration, gets stronger every day. I'm going to leave it there, guys. It's been a long episode catching up today. Hope you have an amazing morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are. Thank you for tuning in to the Voice of the Valleys yet again, and looking forward to catching up with you very, very soon. Have a good one, guys. Oh, no. Actually, there was one more thing that I wanted to do. There was one more thing that I wanted to do before I signed off today. I think this is going to be one of the most important things. So, I want to read you something, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, I went to church earlier, and I'm aware of people using things like scripture for political purposes and stuff like that. You've got to be careful. But there's one thing I want to read to you that I read in one of my previous episodes that never got published, that I think is worthy of bearing in mind. Like I said, In my logo, you'll see a prominent symbol. You'll see two prominent symbols. The dragon that symbolizes this country and the lovely countryside that this country is known for. Community represents fantastically represents a community like mine. And that cross is very, very important. And I feel that there is much as a political solution to stop things like from happening like this again. I firmly believe that there's something else at play. I firmly believe that there's something else, someone else, that we really need to bear in mind and listen to as well. So I'm going to read you something now, and I want you to just have a listen and think about how about 5,000 years ago, what we're seeing in the UK right now, you could argue, was very accurately predicted. So I'm going to fade to black now, guys, because I just want you to listen. And I will catch up with you very, very soon. Godspeed and enjoy. Deuteronomy, chapter 28. And if you obey the voice of the Lord your God, being careful to do all his commandments which I command you this day, the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you, if you obey the voice of the Lord your God. Blessed shall you be in the city, and blessed shall you be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of your body, and the fruit of your ground, and the fruit of your beasts, and the fruit and the increase of your cattle, and the young of your flock. Blessed shall be your basket and your kneading trough. Blessed shall you be when you come in, and blessed shall you be when you go out. The Lord will cause your enemies who rise against you to be defeated before you. They shall come out against you one way, and flee before you 7 ways. The Lord will command the blessing upon you in your barns, and in all that you undertake. And he will bless you in the land which the Lord your God gives you. The Lord will establish you as a people holy to himself, as he has sworn to you, if you keep the commandments of the Lord your God and walk in his ways. And all the peoples of the earth shall see that you are called by the name of the Lord, and they shall be afraid of you. And the Lord will make you abound in prosperity, in the fruit of your body, and in the fruit of your cattle, and in the fruit of your ground, within the land which the Lord swore to your fathers to give you. The Lord will open to you his good treasury, the heavens, to give the rain of your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hands. And you shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. And the Lord will make you the head and not the tail, and you shall tend upward only, not downward, if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you this day, being careful to do them. And if you do not turn aside from any of the words which I command you this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods, to serve them. But if you will not obey the voice of the Lord your God, or be careful to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command you this day, then all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. Cursed shall you be in the city, and cursed shall you be in the field. Cursed shall be your basket and your kneading trough. Cursed shall be the fruit of your body and the fruit of your ground, the increase of your cattle and the young of your flock. Cursed shall you be when you come in, and cursed shall you be when you go out. The Lord will send upon you curses, confusion, and frustration in all that you undertake to do, until you are destroyed and perish quickly on account of the evil of your doings, because you have forsaken me. The Lord will make the pestilence cling to you until he has consumed you off the land which you are entering to take possession of it. The Lord will strike you with consumption and with fever inflammation, and fiery heat, and with drought, and with blasting, and with mildew. They shall pursue you until you perish. And the heavens over your head shall be brass, and the earth under you shall be iron. The Lord will make the rain of your land powder and dust. From heaven it shall come down upon you until you are destroyed. The Lord will cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You shall go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them. And you shall be a horror to all the kingdoms of the earth. And your dead body shall be food for all the birds of the air, and for the beasts of the earth, and there shall be no one to frighten them away. The Lord will strike you with the boils of Egypt, and with the ulcers and the scurvy, and the itch of which you cannot be healed. The Lord will strike you with madness and blindness and confusion of mind, and you shall grope at noonday as the blind grope in darkness, and you shall not prosper in your ways, and you shall only be oppressed and robbed continually, and there shall be no one to help you. You shall betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. You shall build a house, and you shall not dwell in it. You shall plant a vineyard, and you shall not use the fruit of it. Your ox shall be slain before your eyes, and you shall not eat of it. Your donkey shall be violently taken away before your face, and shall not be restored to you. Your sheep shall be given to your enemies, and there shall be no one to help you. Your sons and your daughters shall be given to another people, while your eyes look on and fail with longing for them all the day. And it shall not be in the power of your hand to prevent it. A nation which you have not known shall eat up the fruit of your ground and of all your labors, and you shall be only oppressed and crushed continuously, so that you shall be driven mad by the sight which your eyes shall see. The Lord will strike you on the knees and on the legs with grievous boils of which you cannot be healed, from the sole of your foot to the crown of your head. The Lord will bring you and your king, whom you set over you, to a nation that neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you shall serve other gods of wood and stone. And you shall become a horror, a proverb, a byword among all the peoples where the Lord will lead you away. You shall carry much seed into the field, and shall gather little in, for the locust shall consume it. You shall plant vineyards and dress them, but you shall neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worm shall eat them. You shall have olive trees throughout all your territory, but you shall not anoint yourself with the oil, for your olives shall drop off. You shall beget sons and daughters, but they shall not be yours, for they shall go into captivity. All your trees and the fruit of your ground the locust shall possess. The sojourner who is among you shall mount above you higher and higher, and you shall come down lower and lower. He shall lend to you, and you shall not lend to him. He shall be the head, and you shall be the tail. All these curses shall come upon you and pursue you and overtake you till you are destroyed, because you did not obey the voice of the Lord your God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded you. They shall be upon you as a sign of wonder, and upon your descendants forever. Because you did not serve the Lord your God with joyfulness and gladness of heart, by reason of the abundance of all things, therefore you shall serve your enemies whom the Lord will send against you, in hunger and thirst, in nakedness and in want of all things, and he will put a yoke of iron upon your neck until he has destroyed you. The Lord will bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies, a nation whose language you do not understand, a nation of stern countenance, who shall not regard the person of the old or show favour to the young, and shall eat the offspring of your cattle and the fruit of your ground until you are destroyed, who also shall not leave you grain, wine, or oil, the increase of your cattle, or the young of your flock, until they have caused you to perish. They shall besiege you in all your towns until your high and fortified walls in which you trusted come down throughout all your land. And they shall besiege you in all your towns throughout all your land which the Lord your God has given you. And you shall eat the offspring of your own body, the flesh of your sons and daughters whom the Lord your God has given you, in the siege and in the distress with which your enemies shall distress you. The man who is the most tender and delicately bred among you will grudge food to his brother, to the wife of his bosom, and to the last of the children who remain to him, so that he will not give to any of them any of the flesh of his children whom he is eating, because he has nothing left him. In the siege and in the distress with which your enemy shall distress you in all your towns. The most tender and delicately bred woman among you, who would not venture to set the sole of her foot upon the ground, because she is so delicate and tender, will grudge to the husband of her bosom, to her son and to her daughter, her afterbirth that comes out from between her feet, and her children whom she bears, because she will eat them secretly, for want of all things, in the siege and in the distress with which your enemy shall distress you in your towns. If you are not careful to do all the words of this law which are written in this book, that you may fear this glorious and awesome name, the Lord your God, then the Lord will bring on you and your offspring extraordinary afflictions, afflictions severe and lasting, and sicknesses grievous and lasting. He will bring upon you again all the diseases of Egypt, which you were afraid of, and they shall cling to you. Every sickness also, and every affliction which is not recorded in the book of this law, the Lord will bring upon you until you are destroyed. Whereas you were as the stars of heaven for magnitude, you shall be left few in number, because you did not obey the voice of the Lord your God. And as the Lord took delight in doing you good and multiplying you, so the Lord will take delight in bringing ruin upon you and destroying you. And you shall be plucked off the land which you are entering to take possession of it, and the Lord will scatter you among all peoples from one end of the earth to the other. And there you shall serve other gods of wood and stone, which neither you nor your fathers have known. Among these nations you shall find no ease, and there shall be no rest for the sole of your foot. But the Lord will give you there a trembling heart, a failing eye, and a languishing soul. Your life shall hang in doubt before you. Night and day you shall be in dread, and have no assurance of your life. And in the morning you shall say, would it were evening, and at the evening you shall say, would it were morning, because of the dread which your heart shall fear, and the sights which your eyes shall see. And the Lord will bring you back in ships to Egypt, a journey which I promised you you should never make again. And there you shall offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no man will buy you.